Hello and welcome to this edition of Behind the Headlines here on WTAJ Plus. I'm Marty Radovanic. I'm happy that you've joined us as this show is designed to take a look at stories that we talk about all the time, but maybe take a different angle, a different take, look a little bit behind them. And I am more than pleased to welcome our special guest today. Jack Barlow is a professor of politics at Juniata College and has been doing that since 1991. So you know that he's already smarter than I am. So I'm taking, I'm walking a thin wire here, trying to have a respectful conversation. But he really is a bright guy and does know a lot about the state of play in our country, and that's where I want to start, Jack. I mean, you said 1991 is when you started, and you prepared to teach when you went to school, and you were going to talk about the way we live. Did you ever think at any point when you started back in 1991 that you would be charged with having a group of young people in front of you in a classroom and you'd have to explain where we are today?
Well, it's interesting because when I was, a few years ago, I had a sabbatical in the Czech Republic, and that was when Bill Clinton was being impeached. And so I had to go to several audiences, Czech audiences, and try to explain what was happening in the United States with Bill Clinton. How could we turn on our president in that way?
Yeah, fair question.
Yeah. And so I'm kind of used to trying to talk about the United States without apologizing for it or without criticizing people, and just trying to say what is going on.
Do you think that the people of the Czech Republic today and other countries around the world are looking at us in a whimsical way? Are they looking at us, scratching their heads, or are they laughing at us?
I think it's probably a combination of all of those things. We know, for example, that some people in France are laughing at us, but, the French have been laughing at us for a very long time.
Right.
But I think people are puzzled. I think they're not sure where the United States is going to go. We started at the end of World War II, the United States and our allies created an international order that was based on rules. And we haven't always observed the rules, but we've mostly helped to enforce them. And President Trump has come along and doesn't play by the rules. And so they're really uncertain about where the United States is going to go, what it's going to do, how it's going to be in the coming years.
Let's talk about, and again, this is not, I don't want this conversation to be strictly political because, there were a lot of people, there were 70 million people that voted for Donald Trump this time. So it's hard to say that what he's doing is against the will of the people because he had 70 million people voted for him. And I'm not sure that they voted expecting what they've gotten and what they're getting, but it doesn't matter. That's the guy that they wanted to be the president of the United States. He's duly elected. But it isn't, I wonder, what other countries, when they look at that and they think, you've made fun of us. And I mean, our politics has made fun of the governments around the world for as long as I've been around. And, I'm 73, so it's not like it's a new thing. And when it was warranted or not, it didn't seem to matter. Our commander-in-chief might say something, but not with the same, I don't know, verve is the right way to describe, but, the insistence that I'm going to say whatever I want to say and whether you like it or not. And let's go to a thing like tariffs. Now, tariffs are not a new thing. Right. Tariffs have been a part of the social, economic strata of the world forever, okay? And you'll get enough economists that will tell you, yeah, in certain circumstances, tariffs are a good idea. We've never, though, had somebody come out and say, either you do it my way or I'm going to put a 90% tariff on the goods you send over here, which is like, what?
Right.
So I wonder does that mean these other countries and our trading partners, look what we're doing to Canada, our biggest trading partner, and it's part of, and that comes back to affect the economy of this country, that's a fair thing. So what are all these? Do they really? Are they serious? Are they taking it? Because we keep hearing about. Well, we've got deals with all these other countries. I don't know what deals they've got because they sent out however many letters. But I mean, the world order. Okay, does it have an impact there? I guess is where I'm going with this. What do you think?
I think it does have an impact on the world order. I think what's happened with a lot of countries that have been threatened with tariffs is they've either given some short-term concessions, just enough to get him to say, okay, we'll put the tariffs off, or we'll cancel them, or something. And I think that most of them are just kind of laying low, hoping that they can forestall it, hoping that he'll keep pushing it back, which he has. They're going to wait and see what happens. But they're mystified. They're waiting. They're watching, hoping that things clear up. I mean, I think they're partly laying low because they know that Trump is in for 4 years.
Right. Right.
So this isn't going to be forever. Maybe the Democrats will win in 26, and he will be it will sort of draw his fire.
Yeah, the practical, or the usual, is that a first-term president in his first midterm, which in this case would be the 26th election, is going to lose seats in both the House and the Senate. It's the way it normally happens. The party in power doesn't do so well. And in the past, President Obama and President Clinton suffered some. President Bush, the same. I mean, it was a major turnaround. And of course, right now, the president enjoys the majority in both the House and the Senate, which should make his agenda easier to be enacted. The thin majority they have has shown that, well, that's not exactly the case. There's still a lot of horse trading and negotiating that has to go on. But there seems to be a bigger divide now between Republicans and Democrats than there's ever been in my lifetime. They've always been on opposite sides, but for decades, they found a way to work through personal differences and get little victories, and compromise actually happened. It's not happening anymore, and it's not likely to happen anytime soon because the party of power is using the power because the president is a member of that party and wants these things done. So do you think this is the fissure that will break the two-party system as we move forward?
I don't think it's going to break the two-party system. I think that what has happened is the Republican Party is really dedicated, committed to the idea of winning elections. And they will say or do anything that they can in order to win an election. Trump has shown them how to do that.
Yeah.
And they like him. And they want to.
Do they like him, or are they afraid of him?
Yes.
Great. Okay. They like him and they're afraid of him because he threatens to, and he does carry a lot of political clout.
Carries a lot of political clout. He can threaten to primary them, and that's the end, right? And that's why Tom Tillis, for example, decided not to run for the Senate.
And I tell, when I have conversations with people, I said, listen, this is their job. This is how they pay the mortgage on their house, put their kids through college, pay for their cars, the whole 9 yards. They don't want to lose a job that you can argue whether it pays them too much or not. I frankly don't think they're paid all that much money because they have to maintain 2 residences, one in D.C. and one in their home district. Mm-hmm. It's not a lot of money for the travel and all the other things they have to do. But it is their job, so they're going to do what they can, like any of us would do, to protect it. They don't want to lose it.
That's right.
Now, then you come up with a thing like immigration, which is the central theme that Donald Trump ran for the presidency in his second term. He talked about it a lot in his first term, but the second term, and it was obvious, there was a great percentage of people in the populist and the popular vote. These were people that were tired of the system and they wanted it changed. And Trump said, I'll change it and I will get rid of all those people. Republicans have been inflating the number forever, that there's 50 million illegals here. I don't know where you put 50 million, but let's just, if that's the number, then that's the number. And the public was behind that effort. And then they started trying to deport people. And you can talk about the tactics, which have been somewhat militaristic in some places, just going in and grabbing somebody in a store. Whether they're should be deported and shouldn't be here is not the argument. But a recent poll last weekend by reputable, not just one, I think there were 3 of them, but pretty reputable polling firms, showed that the tide has turned and that Americans don't have a problem with immigration now as much as they did before. Because I think they overplayed their hand, and they, being the administration, maybe overplayed their hand by thinking they had this power behind them to go and get these people and get them out of here. And especially when they announced the alligator Alcatraz in Florida, and people started thinking about that. And again, if you're a hardened criminal or a murderer, we shouldn't be worried about whether you have a posh place to be put into. You should get what you deserve. But they were just wholesale putting people, and so it's turning. Now, is that going to change the emphasis of the Trump administration on immigration, do you think?
It might. They've quietly, for example, made some carve-outs for agriculture.
Yeah.
Because we use a lot of
Right.
international workers for agriculture. So I think that there are probably some moves behind the scenes to quiet things down on immigration. However, Trump's base really likes his policies.
Yeah, they
and
do.
they really like the idea of showing your strength, right? And that means, if necessary, ignoring requirements of due process, of being, showing up unmarked ICE agents,
Hmm.
right? Showing
Right.
up in tactical gear and rounding people up, and they don't mind that.
What do you think
And
about that? What would you tell your students who ask you questions like, Professor, is that correct? Is that how this country was supposed to operate?
well, we've always had a love-hate relationship with processes, right?
Yeah.
We want to get the bad guys.
Yeah. Oh, no, we do.
We want to get the bad guys. And so, when the processes get the bad guys, great. When the bad guys go free, we want to stretch things. And that's a problem, right? How do you honor the idea of adhering to a process when the bad guys go free?
Let's talk about recent the activity in California, the unrest, the political unrest, when ICE was going in and grabbing people and other people were protesting, and that was a real tinder keg. That, again, whether you believe that the president has the power to usurp the power of the governor, who's supposed to call out the National Guard, that's immaterial to me. But the fact is, it was a very tense situation. Something that we haven't seen in this country to that degree probably since the '68 Democratic Convention in Chicago, where protesters were taking over and law and order had to be restored. Are we in store for more of that? Because it seems that the two sides, the divisiveness between the two sides is as razor thin or hot as it's ever been. Is that a concern of somebody like you that's watched the way government's supposed to work and the way it is or isn't working? Something we have to fear as we move forward?
I wish I had a good answer for that question. Maybe we do. Part of it is, I think, that the people who are likely to protest, the people who are likely to riot, to take arms against the government, for example, I think they've stepped back. And I think which I think was prudent on their part. I think it was dumb to continue to confront the government.
Yeah, but will it happen again, depending on what happens, what the rules or the mandates or the orders? can it happen again?
Of course it can happen.
Yeah, and I don't know that we can say that. I don't remember a time in our, like I said, other than the '68, and there's so many things. People who didn't live during the '60s, we don't have enough time to try to set the table as to how it got to where it got to.
Right.
The Vietnam War was just, if you think the Iraq War split people into two camps, not like Vietnam did, because there were a lot of American kids who were dying in Vietnam, a lot more than died in Iraq. So it was, the country was poised to have something like that. Let's talk about the big, beautiful bill, the way the president has phrased it from the beginning. The major concern seems to be the impact it's going to have on, I won't say the poor, but poorer people, Medicaid, food stamps, or the SNAP program. It's now called the SNAP program. And Ryan, I'm not sure where we are. I'm talking to our producer time-wise. Do we have time to go to that? We did a story recently with a reaction from a local lawmaker about what cuts to SNAP, or we used to call it food stamps, but now it's called the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Ryan, you want to run that little clip? This is, again, a reaction from a local lawmaker.
State Democrats warning that there could be some cuts in Pennsylvania's SNAP benefits, and they're blaming it on federal funding cuts. In Center County today, officials gathered to discuss how they believe these cuts will hurt Pennsylvania farms, food businesses, and families. The SNAP Food Assistance Program helps nearly 2 million Pennsylvanians, including nearly 9,000 in Center County. State Representative Paul Takak says the impact will have a ripple effect beyond SNAP recipients.
SNAP supports the entire food chain, from farms to our kitchen tables. And every dollar invested in SNAP yields $1.54 in total economic activity. This is a good investment.
Governor Shapiro's proposed budget increases state funding designed to counter the cutbacks and improve access to fresh food, especially in Pennsylvania's urban areas, which are often considered food deserts.
So now we know that, and let's be fair, Takak is a Democrat, so he's going to take that position, I think. I mean, to be fair, we call him, we identify him. But the fact is, cuts to SNAP and Medicaid, there's been a lot of conversation about it that, well, it's only, Medicaid, we're only going to get rid of the people who should be working and aren't working. We're going to make them pay for it. But how do you separate it like that? Are we getting to a point where people who need food are not going to get it because of the cuts to SNAP, and people who need health care are not going to get it because of the cuts to Medicaid?
Yes, we are getting there. And it's ironic, right? We're the richest country in the world. We have all the resources that we could put into support for people, and we're choosing not to do it. I mean, President Trump has tried to make government efficient, make government run well, but he has some, I think, really kind of Reagan-era ideas about who is getting benefits and who deserves them, and so he's not concerned about the people who are likely to be harmed by this, and whether his voters are concerned about it, I'm not sure.
Well, do you think that when you ask that question, it's the way it's presented? Do they understand what's? Listen, if you would say to me, I think somebody who's getting some sort of a benefit and it requires you should have to work somewhere to enjoy the benefit, and you just refuse to work and you're just going to take it, well, that needs to be fixed. I don't have a problem with that, although as long as you can differentiate from the people who can't work, right? Who still need the help, but they can't work. That's the concern that I had for all this, is that people who really, you talk about being caught in the middle. They don't really have a vote. And the healthcare thing, and we've heard it from a number of people who are a lot smarter about things like that than I am, who say that the cuts to Medicaid are going to, it's a popular thing now for people who are opposed to it to say it's going to cost lives. I don't know that I could. I don't know because I'm not a medical expert. But it would seem to me that if you need medical care and you can't get it because you can't pay for it, that can't be good.
I don't think so. I don't think so.
But where does it lead us?
Well, I'm not quite sure where it leads us, except to say that we have a problem with benefits. We've always had a problem with benefits.
Right.
We are not a welfare state, right? We're a state that has to fight for every dollar for support for people who don't have enough income, or for people who don't have medical care, or things like that. It's always a fight, and as long as our government, I think, continues to be structured the way it is, it's going to continue to be a fight.
Structured the way it is. You give me a primer. What do you mean?
Well,
or how could it be structured?
Yeah, I mean, how could it be structured? I'll get to that, but right, we're a federal system,
right,
and so things that are like SNAP, for example, are administered by the state. And so each state has its own administrative structure. Each state has its own level of support,
right,
and so on. And so some states are going to be more generous, and some states are going to be more stingy. And we're okay with that, because we believe that having that decentralization is a good thing, that supports popular control. Now, how could we structure it? Well, we could simply have a national system where the federal government runs the SNAP benefits or Medicaid directly, and cut the states out altogether. So that would be maybe more efficient. It would be more uniform.
And it could be more problematic, too.
And it could be more problematic.
Because states are not the same. Peoples are not the same in those states, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, 3 minutes left. I want to talk to you. I want you to look ahead. What's going to happen in 2028? First of all, Donald Trump is still going to try to figure out a way to run for a third term. I don't see it happening, because when I read the Constitution, it seems pretty clear to me, but we'll see. Let's say he's not the candidate. Are people going to run like Trump? Are they going to be Donald Trump because it worked? You know, he got both houses. He got the presidency. Do you foresee that happening? Or put your crystal ball, or look at your crystal ball, put your wise man hat on, and tell me what happens in 3 years.
I'm much more comfortable with the past, but yeah. Look, nobody has Donald Trump's talent. He is a really talented politician. He practiced it for all those years on The Apprentice.
Yep.
And he's given us that persona in full blast. I don't think anybody else can do it. You've got somebody like J.D. Vance, who looks to be perhaps an heir apparent, or looks like he thinks he's the heir apparent.
Yeah, he may think it, but Trump has not exactly been an endorser of him to this point.
Not yet. So I'm
all right,
curious.
you studied the Constitution. It's part of what you teach.
Mm-hmm.
Will the Constitution, is there any way that Trump can run again?
Maybe he can find a way. I don't know.
If anybody can.
He's got lawyers that are smart enough, I think. I think that, it seems like birthright citizenship is clear in the Constitution also. And
look where that's going.
Right, exactly. So whether he will find a way around it, I'm not sure.
Let me ask you, start teaching a new class in the fall. Are you going to tell those students the American dream still exists? You should continue to strive to be the best person you can be and not worry about what's going on around you.
Yes, I think so. I think this will
With
pass.
confidence?
With fair confidence. Not huge confidence, but fair confidence.
Do you think they'll believe you?
Probably not.
And do they know enough about the world that they'll be entering to be able to handle it? Or will they just, and I see it in my own grandsons, kind of ignore things that really don't have a direct impact on them?
Well, yes, they will. Because we all did when we were growing up, and we will continue to do that.
And I'll ask you one final question. Are we headed at any point in the time left that you and I have in this world to an authoritarian state?
I don't think so, but it's going to depend on people coming together and making clear that that's not going to be acceptable.
That's a fair answer, but do you believe what you just said?
I do. I do. It depends on them being there being enough people to say, no, we're not going to go there.
But it's still possible, isn't it?
It is possible.
And would you have thought that 20 years ago, that if someone asked you a question like I just asked you, that you would answer the same way? Or would you have said, what are you talking about?
20 years ago, probably not.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, look what happened with Richard Nixon.
Great
Right.
example. Great example. Jack Barlow, Juniata College, knows a lot more about the political game than I do. It's a pleasure. I've talked to you a number of times. Thanks so much for agreeing to come over and try to sort through. I don't know how well we did, but I appreciate the effort.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.